The secret American oil route is choking Iran's Revolutionary Guards. The American military has secretly established a shipping route for entry into the exit from the Strait of Hormuz. Is the regime in Tehran on the verge of collapse at any moment? Turkey is trying to increase its military power in the Middle East and says it will not give up on deploying forces in Syria. The campaign between Washington and Tehran is escalating quickly. Iran is moving into attack mode, firing in every direction and threatening everything that moves, while the United States is moving forward with force in its economic strangulation campaign. The President of the United States has announced that the American administration is preparing to impose unprecedented economic isolation measures on Iran. Trump announces an economic operation against Iran. Isolation on an unprecedented scale is what he said. Trump's warning to the world: anyone who helps Iran will pay a heavy price. And the Iranians continue not to take President Donald Trump seriously. Turning off the tap, Abu Dhabi is in a full break with Tehran. The United Arab Emirates has suspended all commercial and financial activity with Iran. I'm Shoshani, joined by Ashlea. We're boots on the ground. We bring you the truth about what's happening in Israel and the truth about what is happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. Today's August 20th. Let's get started. Following the deadlock in the talks between the United States and Iran, President Donald Trump announced overnight the imposition of economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation against Iran and its proxies, in a move he called the economic D-Day. On his social network, Truth Social, Trump wrote, "Because Iran failed to reach a deal, I am announcing the largest economic operation ever carried out against any country. This will be economic warfare and international isolation on an unprecedented scale." President Donald Trump announced a dramatic escalation of economic pressure on Iran, declaring what he called the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country. Now, according to him, the move is intended to bring the Islamic Republic into unprecedented economic isolation, while explicitly threatening measures against countries, financial institutions, businesses, and organizations that continue helping Tehran. Trump made clear that anyone who provides Iran with oil smuggling, cash transfers, front cash companies, or any other bypass route will pay a heavy price. Everything must stop now, the president said in his statement. Trump described Iran's condition in especially harsh terms. Their navy is gone, their air force has been destroyed, their military factories have been reduced to rubble, their currency is worthless, and their country is hanging by a thread. At the same time, he made clear that the move will not stop with direct measures against Tehran, but will also target anyone who helps it bypass the isolation. Trump gave the move the name Economic D-Day and called on Washington's allies to join the campaign. "We need all of our allies to stand with the United States of America in order to isolate and defeat the Iranian threat," he said. He ended his statement with a firm message. These lunatics are on the floor, and these historic measures will cripple them and their ability to spread terror around the world. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. At the same time, the United Arab Emirates announced that it is stopping all trade relations and financial transactions with Iran, against the background of the escalation in the region and after accusing Tehran of launching 2 ballistic missiles towards shipping lanes and attacking tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. This was reported by the New York Times. Iran, for its part, denied launching the missiles. The move by Abu Dhabi could significantly intensify the economic pressure on Iran. In 2004, the United Arab Emirates was Iran's largest source of imports, and trade between the two countries stood at about $28 billion. The announcement was published hours after a call between President Donald Trump and the President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed. And now, to the secret route in Hormuz. The American military secretly established a shipping route for entry and exit from the Strait of Hormuz, through which millions of barrels of oil are moved every day, a significant achievement even while the wider war remains stuck in a deadlock. That is according to two senior American officials. As part of the operation, which has been underway for several weeks, between 50 and 20 tankers enter and exit the strait every night through a southern route along the coast of Oman. In this way, significant quantities of oil, about 2/3 of the pre-war volume, are moved out of the strait and into the global entry market. The American military also helps empty tankers enter the Gulf from the Arabian Sea through the strait, collect oil from countries in the region, and then exit again. The numbers behind the move tell the story. Every day, about 15 million barrels leave through Hormuz and alternative routes. At the same time, Venezuela, which has now become an ally of Trump, supplies almost 2 million barrels per day. As a result, together with reduced Chinese dependence on Iranian or Middle Eastern oil, the number of barrels Trump controls is approaching nearly 20 million a day, the same as the average export volume from Hormuz before the war. That comparison is also reflected in prices. Brent crude stands at only $90 a barrel, and American oil at $85 a barrel, very far from the worst predictions. The military task force managing the operation in the Strait of Hormuz operates from Army headquarters at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. The task force coordinates its activity with America's partners in the Gulf states. Every day, it prepares a list of vessels leaving the Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz into the Arabian Sea, as well as a list of empty tankers leased to sail from the Arabian Sea through the strait into the Gulf state ports and collect additional oil. Every night, the ships are scheduled to move in one large convoy crossing the strait at a defined hour, and in another large convoy entering the Gulf during a separate time window. The vessels then pass through the southern route according to instructions from the American military. The U.S. Air Force operates fighter jets that protect the vessels from Iranian cruise missiles and drones. The operation was made possible by a 2-week military campaign by United States Central Command, CENTCOM, which damaged Iran's radar and maritime surveillance systems. According to the officials, as a result, Iran's ability to track movements along the southern route of the strait has been significantly reduced. Now, according to American officials, Iranian surveillance is currently limited to several radars that Iran has managed to return to operation, as well as observers in small Revolutionary Guard speedboats. Now, because the Iranians are mostly blind regarding the situation in the strait, they're launching drones and cruise missiles towards the general direction where they believe the vessels are passing. Several vessels were hit in Iranian attacks, but many of the attacks were intercepted by the American military. On one night earlier this week, for example, American forces intercepted 8 Iranian drones and 2 cruise missiles, according to one senior American official. So there's a lot ahead of us. Let's dive into the details. I'm Mati Shoshani, joined by Ashlea Alex. We're boots on the ground. We bring you the truth about what's happening in Israel and about the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. But before we begin, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click the subscribe button. And most importantly, don't forget to find me, Mati Shoshani, and Yair Pinto on social media to get our first-hand perspective on what it's like to live in Israel under war. Now, for our shout out today, for our partner, I want to show you something very special. Imagine holding in your hands soil from the Temple Mount. This is the place where Solomon built the first temple and where Jesus walked and taught. And in 1999, tons of soil were removed from the Temple Mount and discarded. And since then, the Temple Mount Sifting Project has carefully examined this soil, uncovering remarkable traces and artifacts from thousands of years of biblical history. And now you have an opportunity to own a small portion of this historic soil. Each keepsake is individually numbered and comes with a certificate of authenticity. You see that? Signed by 2 of the archaeologists who led that rescue. This is more than simply soil from Jerusalem. It's a tangible connection to the place at the heart of so much of Scripture. A meaningful reminder you can hold during prayer, preserve as a legacy of faith, or pass on to your children. And this is the only soil ever to leave the mount. Now, hold a tangible piece of biblical history in your hands and help support the preservation of the Temple Mount's extraordinary past. Visit TempleMountSoil.com. Again, TempleMountSoil.com, and use code TBN1 for 10% off. That's TempleMountSoil.com and use code TBN1. Don't forget to say that Mati and Yair sent you. Let's get back to the news. So, 8 Israeli airstrikes hit the Abu el-Duhur air base in northwestern Syria, damaging the runway and the storage facilities. A Turkish military delegation had visited the site only hours earlier, and no casualties were reported. So why would Israel risk a direct confrontation with Turkey over one Syrian airfield? Because the concern is what a functioning military base could become. Abu el-Duhur sits roughly 70 kilometers from the Turkish border. Israel says Damascus was moving towards a violation of existing security understandings by allowing a Turkish military presence there. Syria rejects that claim and says Israel had already been told there were no plans for a permanent Turkish base. There was direct contact before the strike. Mossad chief Roman Goffman spoke with Syrian Foreign Minister Assad el-Shaibani about Turkey's military presence, while Israeli officials warned that the status quo was being tested. Washington is now trying to establish a deconfliction mechanism among Israel, Syria, and Turkey. That's important because Turkey is not a proxy force. It has its own air force, troops, and military infrastructure in Syria. A tactical strike can become a state-to-state crisis very quickly. The same question of military access is appearing farther south. China and Egypt are holding the second Eagles of Civilization exercise on Egyptian soil through early September. The training includes air combat tactics, air superiority missions, combat search and rescue, and coordinated force employment. There's no evidence it is directed against Israel, but for Israel, the strategic detail is still important. China is gaining deeper military experience in a country that controls the Suez Canal. Iran, meanwhile, is examining ways to widen the conflict if Washington escalates once more. Possible American military-related targets in southeastern Europe have been studied, including facilities in Bulgaria and Cyprus. Iranian forces have also examined the possibility of damaging undersea fiber optic cables around the Strait of Hormuz. These are contingency plans, not evidence that an attack order has been issued. They also fit the broader two-stage escalation being discussed around the Revolutionary Guards. The first stage would target energy and civilian infrastructure in Gulf states. If that fails to change American policy, the second stage would move towards heavier attacks on U.S. bases, including operations intended to cause American casualties. Lebanon remains more restrained for now. Israeli forces continue pressing Hezbollah's underground infrastructure around the Ali el-Tahir Ridge and blocking attempts to relieve operatives trapped below ground. Now, Iran has reasons to avoid opening that front fully, while Hormuz remains the central confrontation. That restraint should not be confused with stability. Hezbollah remains under serious military and political pressure, and organizations in that position can become less predictable. Now look at the American route through the strait. The important detail is not simply how much oil is moving, it is how the operation works. The U.S.-led task force organizes separate windows for empty tankers entering from the Arabian Sea and loaded tankers leaving the Gulf. American fighter aircraft cover the movement, while the task force coordinates with Gulf partners from Fort Bragg in North Carolina. A 2-week CENTCOM campaign damaged Iranian radar and maritime surveillance systems. Iran is now relying on smaller number of restored radars and observers aboard Revolutionary Guard speedboats. That makes accurate targeting much harder. Earlier this week, American forces intercepted 8 Iranian drones and 2 cruise missiles in a single night. The United Arab Emirates then raised the pressure further. It says 2 ballistic missiles launched from Iran targeted maritime traffic and fell into the sea, one inside Emirati territorial waters. Now, Iran denies launching them. That military confrontation is now feeding directly into President Trump's economic campaign. Now, before we continue, help us share the truth from Israel. Like this report, share it, and subscribe to Boots on the Ground so you don't miss the next change in this rapidly developing war. Because what you see on YouTube is only part of the story. Get closer to our first-hand reporting, behind-the-scenes moments, and stories of faith, resilience, and hope from Israel at tbn.org/journeys/boots. You can also text the word boots to 316-316 to receive direct updates from TBN Israel. Now, when me and Yael report from Israel, you're seeing this region through the eyes of people who live here on the ground. And now, let's move to Ashlea to take us to what's happening in Washington. Ashlea, we're off to you.
Thanks, Matty. The most important part of Trump's economic D-Day announcement is the warning aimed beyond Iran itself. Trump says any country that allows its financial institutions, businesses, airports, or government bodies to provide Tehran with an economic lifeline can face major economic consequences. He listed the channels Washington wants closed: oil smuggling, barter arrangements, cash transfers, exchange houses, ship registrations, and front companies. That is a much broader threat than another normal sanctions list. The exact enforcement package has not yet been fully published. Treasury still has to decide how aggressively secondary sanctions will be applied and which foreign banks, companies, and governments will actually be targeted. China is the hardest test. It remains the dominant buyer of Iranian oil. Washington has already targeted smaller Chinese refiners and companies connected to that trade. Moving against major Chinese banks would be a much larger decision because it could turn the pressure campaign on Iran into a direct financial confrontation with Beijing. The United Arab Emirates has already taken a major step. Abu Dhabi suspended all trade, commercial exchanges, and financial transactions with Iran until further notice. Bilateral trade has been worth roughly $28 billion, and the Emirates has served as one of Iran's most important import and re-export gateways. The scope is still important. Emirati officials have not fully explained whether the suspension also blocks transactions routed through third countries. That matters because Iran has spent years building alternatives around sanctions: trading companies, exchange houses, different currencies, digital assets, ship registries, and front companies. Trump's new strategy is aimed at making those workarounds dangerous for the middlemen as well as for Tehran. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has already signaled that more measures are coming. Options under discussion include wider action against the shadow fleet, the companies and terminals supporting it, and financial institutions that help Iranian oil revenue move back toward the regime. One precedent the administration can draw on is the pressure model Trump used against North Korea in 2017. Force foreign banks and companies to choose between sanctioned state and access to the American financial system. Earlier this year, Trump also threatened a 25% tariff on countries trading with Iran, but that threat was not fully implemented. That option now sits beside possible asset seizures and a wider campaign against the shadow fleet. The administration has already been working through what Treasury calls economic fury, targeting exchange houses and financial networks accused of helping Iran move billions of dollars. The difference now is scale. Trump is threatening to extend the cost beyond Iranian entities to the foreign systems that keep them connected. And none of that happens automatically because of one presidential post. Treasury, state, and other agencies still have to define the legal mechanisms, exemptions, and enforcement targets. The shipping operation Matty described is therefore part of the economic strategy as well. If Washington can keep Gulf oil moving through Hormuz while restricting Iranian exports, it can pressure Tehran without accepting the same level of damage to global supply and American energy prices. Iran understands that logic. Its answer is to make the cost of enforcement rise through attacks, threats to regional infrastructure, and the possibility of spreading the conflict beyond the Gulf. Trump is also drawing a striking contrast between Iran and North Korea. He says he expects to meet Kim Jong-un again and publicly stated that North Korea possesses 57 nuclear weapons. That figure is Trump's own public number, not an independently confirmed count. But the strategic difference is clear. With North Korea, Washington is dealing with a nuclear capability that already exists. The tools are deterrence, diplomacy, and crisis management. With Iran, Trump's position is that the threshold itself must never be crossed. He said Iran cannot be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon because, in his view, the regime would use it. At the same time, Trump says there are no active negotiations with Tehran. So the immediate American approach is pressure, not another negotiating round. That makes the next decision critical. If foreign companies and governments keep helping Iran, Washington will have to decide how far it's willing to punish partners, competitors, and major powers in order to make economic D-Day more than a slogan. Matti, back to you.
Thank you, Ashlea. Let's get back to the news. Washington is trying to squeeze Iran without allowing Tehran to squeeze the world through oil, while Israel is moving against regional positions that could narrow its military freedom. The question now is whether Iran absorbs that pressure or opens one of the fronts it is already preparing. So guys, keep spreading the truth. Follow us, and most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time, never miss boots on the ground. Keep looking for me, Mati Shoshani, and Yael Pinto on social media to see life in Israel through our eyes. And now, as always, let's pray for the people of Israel. Father God, we ask for your supernatural protection for the men and women protecting Israel's borders as we speak right now. Protect the American men and women fighting this just war. Bless our leaders, President Trump, Netanyahu, and others in the world, and give them supernatural wisdom to fight this just war. And we ask for your blessing over the team of TBN Israel and everyone behind the scenes working on this project. Guys, thank you for standing with us. Be blessed, and we'll see you all the next time. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yael Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.